I wasn't snooping. I was paying the electric bill. Just a normal Tuesday. A lukewarm coffee next to me, email tabs open, bills lined up like digital ducks. And then there it was. A charge on the joint card, the Rowan Hotel, $218.46. Location? Philadelphia. Date? Last Thursday. I blinked. Paul was supposed to be in Trenton that day. Some networking thing, some dinner with clients. He texted me a photo of the restaurant sign. I'd even sent back a thumbs up emoji like a fool. At first, I thought, maybe he stopped overnight, spur of the moment. Work people do that, right? But something about that charge felt off. It wasn't just the place. It was the fact that he hadn't mentioned it. No, hey, I had to crash in Philly. No hotel receipt in his bag. Nothing. I closed the tab. Didn't say a word. Just kept paying the bills. But that number, $218.46, stuck in my head like a burr under the skin. That night at dinner, I asked, lightly, like it didn't matter, how was Trenton? He chewed. Swallowed. Fine. Kind of boring, honestly. Small crowd. I nodded. You stayed over? He shook his head. Nah. Drove back. Late night. The words landed too smoothly. Too quick. I wanted to say, are you sure? I wanted to scream, I saw the damn charge. But instead I said, you must have been tired. He smiled, that easy smile I used to believe in. Dead tired. We cleared the dishes together. He kissed my cheek. Went to shower. And I stood there in the kitchen like someone had cut the floor out beneath me. I didn't cry. I didn't accuse. I just felt that shift, subtle, quiet, when something you trust clicks out of place. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe he was covering something harmless. Maybe there was a reason. But also maybe there wasn't. And maybe I already knew that. 2. Familiar gaps. It's funny how lies don't usually arrive with a bang. They slip in quietly. 1 minute late. One forgotten text. One skipped explanation. You don't even notice the first few. But then they start to pile up. And suddenly you're neck deep in things that don't add up. It started with Paul coming home late. Not absurdly late. Just enough to feel off. He used to walk in at 6 every day. Like clockwork. Jacket off, tie loose, kiss on the head, what's for dinner? That rhythm, familiar, comforting. Now it was 6:30. Then 7:20. Then 8. Traffic, he'd say, not looking up from his phone. Got caught up, he mumbled one night, still unlocking the door while typing something rapid fire. I asked once, busy week. He nodded. Meetings. Numbers are a mess this quarter. But here's the thing, Paul didn't bring work home. Ever. That was one of his boundaries. Home is home, he'd say. And suddenly, home was just where he slept. Barely. The strangest part? Liv had gone quiet too. My sister. My best friend. The one who used to drop by for coffee, text me memes, ask if I wanted to escape for a pedicure. Nothing. For weeks. I texted her, hey, alive? She replied 6 hours later, just busy. Miss you too. No emojis. No questions. No when can we hang? I brushed it off. Once. Twice. By the third too busy reply I felt it. That pit. That cold drop in the gut you get when something's wrong and no one's saying it out loud. Paul and Liv never spent time alone. Ever. Not in a weird way, just, they weren't close. They tolerated each other. Joked occasionally. She always said he was a little too polished. He said she was chaotic but lovable. So why did it feel like they were avoiding me in tandem? Like someone had closed a door and I was the one standing on the other side, knocking. I started paying attention. Paul's phone never left his side anymore. Even in the bathroom. He'd laugh at messages, then lock the screen. He turned off location sharing, which we used to have on for convenience, just in case, we always said. I asked once, trying not to sound accusatory, did your phone update? I can't see your location anymore. He looked at me like I'd asked to read his diary. Oh. Yeah. Must have reset or something. He didn't turn it back on. Liv canceled brunch 3 weekends in a row. No reason. Just, ugh, next time. Swamped. Swamped with what? She freelanced from home. She hated being swamped. It was her personal hell. I sat with that word for a long time. Swamped. And started to feel like I was drowning. Nothing concrete yet. No lipstick on a collar. No texts caught in the act. But the air between us felt thicker. Denser. Like I was walking through fog and everyone else saw clearly. And every time Paul smiled at me, I felt like I was looking at a man I used to know. There's a kind of theater to pretending nothing's wrong. Paul got good at it. He still made coffee in the morning. Still brought me my favorite muffin on Fridays. Still asked how my meetings went, how my mother was doing, whether I ever finished that book. And I played along. Answered like everything was fine. Laughed when he made his dry little jokes. Kissed his cheek before bed. But it was all off. His smiles didn't reach his eyes anymore. His hands were always busy with his phone, his keys, his shirt buttons, like stillness had become dangerous. He started humming more. A habit I used to find sweet. Now it felt like a cover. Like noise to fill the space between us. He joked about work but never mentioned names. Told stories that didn't go anywhere. Avoided details like they might betray him. And the phone? It might as well have been glued to him. Screen always facing down. Face ID only. Notifications silenced because meetings have been insane. But the screen still lit up. I saw it once. 3 messages in a row from a number labeled spa and company. He didn't own a spa. We'd never even been to one. He said it was a marketing firm. Right. One evening he said he'd have to head to Philadelphia again. One night thing. Just a dinner and pitch. That word again, pitch. He used to say meeting or lunch or catch up. Now everything was a pitch. I asked where he'd be staying. He blinked. What? Hotel, I said, keeping my voice level. You booked already? Yeah. The Rowan, I think. My skin went cold. Same hotel. Same name. Same charge I'd seen on the bank statement 2 weeks ago. He noticed the pause. Why? I smiled. Just curious. He smiled back, but his eyes flicked, just for a second, away from mine. That night, lying in bed, I remembered something Liv said last month. Casually offhand over brunch when she was still showing up. I might have to go down to Philly next month. This wellness startup wants me to consult. I didn't think much of it then. Now it hit like a slap. What are the odds? I opened my calendar. Checked the date of that Rowan charge again. Thursday. Same week Liv posted on Instagram from a nondescript hotel gym. Caption, trying to stay healthy even on the road. No geotag. But the carpeting in the background? I found it on the Rowan's website. Same pattern. Same wall sconces. I felt my hands go numb. I didn't cry. Not yet. Because I still didn't know. Not really. But deep down I did. I didn't tell anyone I was going. I packed an overnight bag like I was headed to a yoga retreat. Left a note for the neighbor to let the dog out. Said I had a client meeting in Newark. Which wasn't a lie technically. I just didn't mention I wasn't the client. The drive from our town to Philadelphia takes about 5 hours if traffic's kind. That day the roads were strangely open. Like the universe had cleared the path for whatever was about to happen. I didn't play music. I didn't listen to a podcast. I just drove, white knuckles on the steering wheel, brain spinning in circles that never reached the center. What was I expecting to see? Them kissing in the lobby? Hugging in a hallway? Maybe nothing. Maybe I'd sit in my car for hours and feel stupid. Maybe I'd imagine things. Maybe I'd catch him alone and realize I was the one unraveling. But the math didn't lie. The Rowan Hotel. Thursday. The gym photo. His name on the statement. Her caption. The missing hours. The eyes that didn't meet mine anymore. I got there around 4:40 p.m. Checked into a cheap motel 3 blocks away. Something with flickering fluorescent lights and a front desk clerk who looked like he hadn't slept since 2008. I changed into something neutral, black hoodie, jeans, sunglasses. Pulled my hair back. Not because I wanted to hide, but because I didn't want to be seen by them as me. I walked. Slowly. Crossed the block. Turned the corner. There it was, the Rowan. Beautiful. Polished. Exactly the kind of place he liked. Modern wood panels. Minimalist signage. Valet parking. And one too many perfectly arranged throw pillows in the lobby. I stood across the street and watched. For a long time, nothing. Just people checking in, staff in black vests, a couple arguing quietly near the fountain. And then him. Paul. I knew the way he walked. That half-straight posture. Confident but tired. One hand in his coat pocket, the other scrolling his phone. And next to him, Liv. She had her hair up in that high twist she does when she wants to look put together. Black coat. Gray boots. A purse I'd seen her carry to our house last Christmas. They weren't touching. But they were aligned. Too aligned. She said something. He laughed. They both stopped near the entrance. He looked down at her with that half-smile he used to give me when we were still new. She smiled back, touched his wrist. That was it. Not a kiss. Not an embrace. Just a moment. But it said everything. Because it was too easy. Too familiar. Too practiced. Like they'd done this before. Like this wasn't the first time they'd arrived at this hotel together. Like they had a rhythm now. A routine. I couldn't breathe for a second. Not because I was shocked that part had already burned out. But because watching them felt like being erased in real time. They stepped inside. The automatic doors closed behind them. And I stood there. Frozen. I didn't follow. Didn't storm in. Didn't call out her name, didn't demand answers, didn't fall apart on the sidewalk. I just turned. And walked away. Not crying. Not shaking. Just done. I didn't sleep that night. Back at the motel, I lay on the stiff bed under fluorescent light, fully dressed, eyes wide open. Not crying. Not spiraling. Just thinking. About the version of me that would have gone in there, thrown a fit in the lobby, demanded explanations, made a scene. And how far away that version felt now. She would have screamed. Cursed. Grabbed his phone, maybe hers. Called our parents, our friends. Made sure everyone knew how betrayed she was. But I wasn't her anymore. Something about standing on that corner, watching them disappear into that hotel like it was nothing, it flipped a switch. They had already made their choice. Now I just had to make mine. At 6 a.m, I packed my things. Left the motel key on the pillow. Got in the car and drove north without the radio on. Again. By the time I pulled into our driveway, the house still sleeping in that gray early light, I had a list in my head. Not a revenge plan. A recovery checklist. I didn't slam the door. Didn't storm upstairs. I went to the kitchen, made coffee, and sat with a notebook. It was the same notebook I use for budgeting and grocery lists. But now it had a new section. Titled, When You're Done Pretending. Step 1, New Bank Account. Step 2, New Phone Number. Step 3, Rental Listings. Step 4, Find a lawyer. Not dramatic. Just necessary. I didn't talk to Paul that morning. He came in from his business trip around 9. Kissed me on the temple. Smelled like hotel soap and something unfamiliar. I smiled. Because now I knew it wasn't mine to carry anymore. That afternoon, while he was at work, I called an apartment complex I'd bookmarked months ago. Not because I was planning to leave back then, it was just curiosity. A quiet what if. But now? It was the answer. 1 bedroom. Month to month. Safe neighborhood. I signed the lease by the end of the week. I opened a checking account at a small credit union he didn't use. Transferred just enough to get by, not to hide, just to breathe. I told my boss I needed a few days remote. She didn't ask questions. I think I looked like someone who shouldn't be asked questions. I packed quietly over 2 nights. The essentials first: clothes, laptop, toiletries. Then the quiet pieces: my grandmother's necklace, the photo of my dad when I was 3, the one book I always reread when I'm lost. On the 3rd morning, I left a note on the kitchen counter. No drama. No accusations. Just a page from the same notebook. Paul. I know. I saw you. I saw her. I'm not asking why. I'm just done. Don't call. Don't look for me. You made your choices. Now I'm making mine. Jay. I turned my phone off. Slid the ring off my finger. Not with tears. Not with regret. Just, finally. And I walked out of the house we built together like I was stepping out of a museum I no longer recognized. No slammed doors. No screaming voicemail. Just silence. A full, peaceful, complete silence. The kind that feels like the beginning. Paul started texting on the 2nd day after I left. At first it was short. Where are you? Then, Jenna, please. Call me. Then came the wave. Messages like they were written by different people. Some pleading, some defensive, some manipulative. As if he was trying on emotions like outfits, hoping one would fit the version of me he remembered. It was a misunderstanding. You saw it wrong. We were just talking. You don't understand how lonely I've been. Liv was there when you weren't. When I wasn't. That line made me laugh, out loud, in my tiny new kitchen, sitting on the floor with a mug of terrible instant coffee and a stack of unopened boxes. I wasn't there? I, who stood by him through 3 failed business ideas, his anxiety spiral, his quiet resentment at turning 40. I, who took on more hours at work when he needed space to figure things out. I, who cooked his favorite meals when he didn't even notice they were on the table. And now I was the one who wasn't there. He kept messaging. Sometimes we can fix this. Other times you're overreacting. Then, I was confused. I didn't know what I was doing. Confused? Confused is forgetting your keys. Not sleeping with your wife's sister. I didn't reply. Not because I was punishing him, but because I was done explaining myself. Done performing clarity for someone who didn't want to see it. Silence is a conversation. Sometimes the most honest one. I didn't block him. Not out of kindness. Just because I didn't need to. He couldn't touch me anymore. Not in any way that mattered. I set a soft chime for his number, a quiet, non-invasive tone. Something that didn't startle. A sound like a drop of water. Just to remind me he was still trying. And that I wasn't listening. One day he sent a long email. Probably thought the format would feel serious. Respectful. It had everything. Though I misuse. Though you looked so beautiful in that yellow dress the night we met. Though I'll never stop loving you. I read the whole thing. Then I deleted it. No archive. No draft folder. Just gone. Like taking out a box of moldy memories and leaving it on the curb. My mother called. Said he showed up. Wanted to talk to you. I didn't know what to say. I said, you can tell him I have nothing left to say. She paused. Then said softly, you sound calm. I was. Because that's the part he never understood. This wasn't about rage or revenge. It was about peace. And I had it now. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. I packed a duffel bag, locked the door to the apartment, turned off my phone, and drove north until the road started looking unfamiliar. Until the names on the highway signs stopped meaning anything to me. I picked a town at random, small, quiet, not too far, but far enough. They had a cheap roadside motel with chip paint and mismatched curtains. The woman at the front desk didn't ask questions. Just handed me a key with a plastic tag and said, "Checkout's at 11. Perfect. For the first 24 hours I didn't move much. I slept like I hadn't in months. Maybe years. No buzzing phone. No dishes clinking in the sink. No voice behind me asking, did you remember to? Just me under a stiff motel blanket, breathing. The second day I took a walk around the town. Bought a black coffee from a gas station that looked like it hadn't changed since 1994. Sat on a bench outside a closed library and watched people pass, people who didn't know me, didn't need anything from me, didn't expect me to explain my face or my silence. And that's when I realized, for the first time in a long time, I was just a person. Not a wife. Not a sister. Not a story. Just a human being. I bought a cheap notebook from a dollar store and started writing. Not about him. Not about Liv. About me. About who I was before. About the things I used to love, hiking, music I forgot about, dumb movies I used to quote with friends before everything became about bills and schedules and being someone's something. I wrote about the years I spent trying to be low maintenance when really I was just starving for emotional clarity. I wrote about how often I made myself smaller to fit his moods. How many times I called silence peace when it was really avoidance. I wrote until my hand cramped. I cried once not from pain but from relief. Because it hit me, I hadn't just lost a marriage. I'd lost myself in it a long time ago. And now, sitting there in a nameless town with motel sheets and cheap coffee and no schedule, I could feel the layers peeling off. 3 days. That's all it took to remember who I was when no one was looking. I didn't have a big revelation. No cinematic moment, no sunset epiphany. But I breathed. And that was enough. There's a special kind of grief reserved for family. It doesn't scream the way heartbreak does. It sits. Quiet. Heavy. Like wet clothes clinging to your skin long after the storm has passed. I thought a lot about Liv during those 3 motel days. Not about what she did. That part was done concrete. There was no confusion left. But about who she used to be to me. We used to whisper under covers as kids, inventing fake names and pretend boyfriends. We made up languages. Played spy in grocery stores. She was the only person who knew I cried at Pixar movies, even the dumb ones. She was the one who picked out the earrings I wore to my wedding. She knew about the miscarriage I never told anyone else about. She held my hand in that sterile hallway while I pretended I was fine. And still she chose him. I played the scene over and over in my head. Not the betrayal, I didn't need to imagine that anymore. But the moment she made that decision. When did she first reply to his message? When did she first lie to me? Did she feel anything when I hugged her last Thanksgiving? Or had she already checked out? I would never get those answers. Because I wasn't going to ask. Some bridges don't burn, they dissolve. She could have come clean. She could have faced me. Could have chosen integrity over secrecy. But she didn't. She aligned herself with someone she knew was lying. Someone who looked me in the eye every day and pretended. Maybe she told herself stories. That I was cold. That we'd grown apart. That Paul needed comfort and she was just helping. I didn't care. It wasn't about the sex. It was about the choice. She knew what she meant to me. And still she stayed in his orbit, long enough to orbit out of mine. So no, I didn't text her. Didn't scream or block or curse. She simply disappeared. I removed her number. Tossed her birthday card in the trash. I donated the sweater she gave me for my last birthday, the one she claimed was so you. That version of us, the late night talks, the finish each other's sentences closeness, it was already gone. What remained was history. And history can't hug you when you're broken. Some people think cutting off family is cruel. But here's what no one tells you, keeping someone who broke you just because you share blood? That's the real cruelty. I didn't hate Liv. I didn't wish her pain. I just didn't wish her anything. Because she no longer existed in the story I was writing now. And in that I finally found peace. It was a great Tuesday when we met at the lawyer's office. The kind of day where the sky looks like it forgot how to be anything but tired. Appropriate, I guess. The room was small, neutral beige walls, functional chairs, one fake plant in the corner that didn't even try to look real. Paul was already there when I arrived. He stood when I walked in, like he didn't know whether he was supposed to smile or stay solemn. He looked dimmer. Not older exactly. Just hollowed out. Like someone had taken the color out of him. I sat across from him. Didn't say anything. The lawyer, a sharp woman named Denise, handed us a copy of the paperwork. Explained the last steps like a teacher guiding two distracted students through a math quiz. Paul's hand hovered over the page for a second before he picked up the pen. His fingers shook a little. Not a lot. Just enough that I noticed. He signed. Then I did. That was it. No dramatic stamp. No final ding. Just two names on paper and the quiet click of a pen cap. Paul looked at me. Really looked at me like maybe this was the first time he'd seen me without the blur of denial. I didn't want it to end like this, he said. I nodded. But it did. He blinked. Looked down at the papers. Then back at me. Do you even feel anything? Do you hate me? No, I said simply. He sat back. So you don't care? I paused. It would have been easy to say, of course I care. It would have been easy to say, I cared too much for too long. But he didn't need easy. So I said, I care about myself now. That's enough. He looked like he wanted to respond, but the words wouldn't come. Maybe he thought I'd cry. Maybe he expected a last-ditch confession, some leftover emotion he could cling to. Something to prove he still mattered. But I didn't owe him that. He stood up. Well, I hope you find what you're looking for. I smiled, but not for him. I already am. We walked out separately. I didn't look back. Didn't check if he turned to see me leave. I stepped into the quiet hallway and let the door close behind me like a period at the end of a sentence. Outside, the air felt different. Sharper. Honest. I took a long breath and walked to my car. Put on my seatbelt. Turned the engine. No music. Just the sound of myself, fully, finally whole. And a stack of signed papers in my bag that said, you did it. The new place wasn't anything special. 2 bedrooms. Scuffed floors. A crooked curtain rod in the living room. The kitchen smelled faintly like the last tenant's burnt toast and the bathroom tile had seen better decades. But it was mine. I painted one wall pale green. Hung a calendar without filling in the squares. Put my coffee mugs on a shelf that leaned slightly to the left. And for the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for someone else's opinion about any of it. There was no we anymore. No, what do you think, or should we ask Liv? Just me. Just Jenna. I started waking up early again. Not because I had to, but because I wanted the quiet. I went on walks without tracking steps. Took long baths with books that had nothing to do with healing or growth, just messy characters and bad decisions and people who didn't apologize every 5 minutes. I laughed more. Loudly sometimes. The kind of laugh that doesn't check itself first. My daughter visited on weekends. We baked poorly. She told me about school drama and songs I'd never heard of. Sometimes she'd look at me with this curious expression, like she was watching someone come back from underwater. One night, we were brushing our teeth side by side and she said, you seem lighter. I didn't know what to say. I smiled. She was right. I'd stopped carrying people who never learned how to lift me back. I didn't date. Not because I was bitter, I just wasn't looking to fill space. My life didn't feel like an empty seat anymore. It felt like a room I'd finally arranged the way I liked it. Sometimes Paul still messaged. Usually short. Hope you're okay. Heard your mom's birthday was last week. You ever think about us? I never responded. Not out of anger. But because that version of me, the one who waited, who wondered, who gave pieces away like free samples, she was gone. Not vanished. Not erased. Just done. Now I was the woman who made her own dinner, even if it was cereal. Who listened to her own silence and didn't fill it with explanations. Who walked past mirrors and didn't flinch. The woman who didn't need to prove she was okay, because she simply was. No status. No storyline. Just Jenna. And finally, that was enough.